The village square was alive with laughter and music. Drums echoed through the warm evening air as children danced in circles, their feet kicking up red dust that glowed golden in the setting sun. At the center of it all sat an elderly woman, her face carved with lines that spoke of both suffering and joy. Her name was Nia, and today marked her 70th year on this earth. Dozens of people surrounded her, calling out, "Mama Nia, Mama Nia," with voices full of love. Some were young, others middle-aged with children of their own, but they all shared one thing in common. Not a single one was related to her by blood. Mama, a tall man with graying temples, knelt beside her chair. "Do you remember the day you found me?" Nia smiled, her weathered hand reaching out to touch his face. "Kofi, my first. How could I forget?" But that was much later in the story. To understand how an orphan with nothing became a mother to an entire village, we must go back. Back to when Nia was just a frightened child who had lost everything. The illness came swiftly that year. First, it took Nia's father, his strong body reduced to trembling weakness in a matter of days. Her mother held his hand as he died, whispering prayers Nia couldn't hear. 3 weeks later, the same illness claimed her mother. At 8 years old, Nia stood beside 2 fresh graves, her small hand clutched in the rough palm of the village elder. "The child cannot live alone," Baba Ogun said, his voice heavy with authority. The village elders gathered under the great baobab tree, debating her fate as if she wasn't standing right there, silent tears streaming down her face. "Her father had a sister," someone offered. "Zola. She lives on the eastern edge." Baba Ogun nodded slowly. "Then it is decided. The girl will go to Zola." Aunt Zola's compound was nothing like the warm home Nia remembered. The woman was thin and sharp, with eyes that seemed to calculate the cost of everything. She looked down at Nia with barely concealed contempt. "So, they've dumped you on me," Zola said, not bothering to soften her words. "Well, you'll earn your keep. I'm not running a charity." That night, Nia was shown to a small storage room behind the main house. There was no bed, just a thin mat on the hard ground. She curled up on it, clutching the only thing she had left from her parents, a small wooden bird her father had carved, and for the first time since they died, she allowed herself to sob. The years that followed were harsh. Nia woke up before dawn to fetch water, scrub floors, tend a small garden, and prepare meals. She ate only after Aunt Zola had finished, surviving on scraps and leftovers. At night, her body ached from work that should have been too heavy for a child. But something inside Nia refused to harden. When she found a mangy dog limping near the market, she shared her meager portion of bread with it. When younger children in the village fell while playing, she stopped to help them up and brush the dust from their knees. Aunt Zola called her foolish. "You'll never survive in this world with such softness," she sneered. Nia simply replied, "Maybe not, Auntie, but I don't want to survive if it means becoming cruel." When Nia turned 16, everything changed again. Aunt Zola collapsed in the market one morning, dead before anyone could call for the healer. The village assumed Nia would leave immediately, perhaps try her luck in the city or marry quickly to secure a future. Instead, she stood in the doorway of Aunt Zola's small compound, which was now legally hers, and made a decision. "I'm staying," she told Baba Ogun when he came to discuss her options. He raised his eyebrows. "Staying? Child, there is nothing here for you. The house is falling apart, the land is poor, you have no family, no husband, no prospects." Nia looked around at the familiar village, the red earth roads, the distant mountains she'd known all her life. "This is my home," she said quietly. "My parents are buried here. Maybe I have no family, but I have a place I belong." Baba Ogun shook his head, but didn't argue further. Let the girl learn the hard way, his expression seemed to say. Nia was 17 when she set up a small stall in the market, Selling vegetables she had managed to coax from Aunt Zola's neglected garden. The work was backbreaking, and the profits were barely enough to keep her fed. But she was free, and she was home. One sweltering afternoon, as she arranged her wilting tomatoes, she heard a small sound beneath her stall. She bent down to look and found a pair of huge, frightened eyes staring back at her. A little boy, no more than 5 years old, was crouched in the shadows, clutching a half-eaten yam he'd clearly stolen. "Please, don't hit me," the boy whispered, his thin body trembling. Nia's heart clenched. She knew that fear, that hunger, that desperate loneliness. Without thinking, she reached out her hand. "Come out, I won't hurt you." The boy hesitated, then slowly crawled into the light. He was filthy, his clothes little more than rags, his ribs visible through his skin. Nia immediately grabbed her own lunch, a small portion of cassava and beans, and handed it to him. "What's your name?" she asked gently as he devoured the food. "Kofi," he mumbled through mouthfuls. "Where are your parents, Kofi?" His eyes filled with tears. "They died, in a fire. I have nowhere." Nia knelt down to his level, looking into those scared, orphaned eyes, and saw herself. "How long have you been alone?" "I don't know. Many days, many nights." Kofi's voice cracked. "I sleep behind the grain stores. People chase me away when they see me." Around them, the market bustled with activity. Women haggled over prices, men loaded carts, children ran between the stalls. No one paid attention to one more street orphan. Nia felt a familiar ache in her chest, the echo of every lonely night she had spent in Aunt Zola's storage room. "Kofi," she said, making a decision that would change everything. "Would you like to come home with me?" His eyes went wide. "Home? You mean to stay?" "To stay." That evening, as Nia walked back to her small compound with Kofi's hand gripped tightly in hers, several village women stopped to stare. One of them, a sharp-tongued woman named Femi, called out, "Nia, what are you doing with that street child?" "Taking him home," Nia replied simply. Femi laughed, a harsh sound. "Taking him home? Girl, you can barely feed yourself. You're going to take in some beggar boy? This is madness." Another woman chimed in. "She's right, Nia. It's one thing to give him a meal, but to keep him, think practically. You have nothing to offer a child." Nia stopped walking and turned to face them. Her voice was quiet, but steady. "Maybe I have nothing but this broken-down house and a few vegetables, but I have something he needs more than food. I have a heart that remembers what it feels like to be him." The women shook their heads, muttering about foolish young girls, as Nia and Kofi continued on their way. That night, Nia gave Kofi her only blanket and held him as he cried himself to sleep, finally safe for the first time in months. The next weeks were hard. Nia's already meager resources were stretched thin, feeding 2 mouths instead of 1. But something had awakened in her heart. When Kofi found for the first time a bright sound that echoed through the small house, Nia felt a warmth she hadn't experienced since her parents died. Purpose, love, family. Kofi proved to be a blessing. Though young, he was eager to help. He fetched water without being asked, pulled weeds from the garden, and chased birds away from their small crop. At night, they would sit together by candlelight, and Nia would tell him stories her father once had told her. "Mama Nia," Kofi said one evening, the new title slipping naturally from his lips. "Yes?" "Thank you for keeping me." Nia pulled him close. "Thank you for letting me." 18 months passed. Kofi was now nearly 7, healthy and happy, helping Nia at the market. They had found a rhythm, a life together that worked despite its hardships. Then one morning, a commotion at the village entrance drew everyone's attention. 2 little girls, identical twins with huge eyes and braided hair, stood trembling near the well. They couldn't have been older than 6. An older woman was shouting at them, harsh words that made both girls flinch. "I won't feed another man's children. Your father can find someone else to take you." The woman turned and stormed away, leaving the 2 girls standing alone, tears streaming down their faces. Nia watched as villagers passed by, some glancing with pity, but no one stopping. She felt Kofi tug at her sleeve. "Mama Nia," he whispered urgently, "they're like I was. They're scared and alone." "I know, my son. Can we help them? Like you helped me?" Nia looked down at Kofi's earnest face and back at the 2 girls who were now holding each other, sobbing quietly. She thought of her tiny house, her barely sufficient garden, the constant struggle to make ends meet. Taking in one child had been difficult,